Hi, I'm Steph, and I'm back today to talk a little bit more about musicals. But first, thanks for watching, and if you like this video, click like. Maybe think about subscribing to my channel. I'm kind of new to this YouTube thing, so I appreciate your support a lot. So I made a video a few weeks ago talking about some of my favorite musical theater film adaptations, and this is kind of a follow-up to that video. My daughter pointed out that I mistakenly forgot to talk about what is probably my favorite movie musical, The Pirates of Penzance. So I wanted to talk more about that and why I love that musical and that film adaptation. And you can kind of see I have the poster on my office wall. It's a little bit obscured because of the way the light reflects off of it, but that's how much I love The Pirates of Penzance. I have loved it since I was young, and so I also had a viewer comment on my first video about musicals asking me for more detail about what I like in an adaptation, as well as why I don't like the musical Mame. So let's see what I can come up with here for you. So Mame, I actually haven't seen the film adaptation, so this is just kind of like my general feelings about the stage show. I was a teenager when I was introduced to the show. I was in it when I was a senior in high school. I was this good, quiet Christian girl, and I played Agnes Gooch, who is the character who ends up getting drunk and pregnant out of wedlock. So that was a little different than my life. I didn't mind that so much as I just didn't like the whole show. Okay, so the story is about a wealthy socialite woman who's ruined by the stock market crash of 1929. At the same time, she becomes the guardian of her orphaned nephew, Patrick. Her best friend is Vera, who is a lush, and Patrick's nanny is Agnes Gooch. She's this uptight, straight arrow type, who, like I said, ends up being changed by Mame and Vera's influence. And the show features a lot of really famous musical numbers, such as We Need a Little Christmas and the catty song Bosom Buddies. And I know a lot of people love it. They love this show. And maybe the problem for me was that I was just young and kind of dumb, and I just could not get into the spirit of the show. It just didn't grab my heart like so many other musicals have. It's kind of hard to analyze why you don't like something. I don't have a lot of specifics. It's been a very long time since I was in it, and because I didn't enjoy it, I haven't returned to watch or listen to the soundtrack of Mame. So I don't have a lot of specifics about what I didn't like about it, except that I just couldn't relate to any of the characters. I found them unlikable and a bit ridiculous. Bless his heart, our drama teacher wanted something that would showcase the three of us who were the leads. And it did give us a chance to really sing. We all had solos and duets and things, and it gave us a little bit of spotlight. But I just didn't care about the story or the people in it. I found it very boring. And again, maybe that was because I was a teenager and I just didn't get it. It's definitely a story set in its time. And it's about, this type of people, this wealthy socialite woman and her friend. And I can relate to other shows, obviously, that are not set in my personal time period. This one just bored me to death. So I won't say that I hated every minute of it. It was really fun to be on stage, of course, and I had some solos, which you always enjoy if you're a performer. But I just couldn't connect to the story, I guess. I found the characters shallow, and the music was mostly just okay in my mind. And of course, at that time, I was listening to soundtracks of like Big River and Chess and Les Miserables and Phantom of the Opera, and the score of Mame just doesn't hold a candle to those, in my opinion. And maybe I should go give it a watch or another listen. Maybe I would like it more now that I've had some life experience, but I'm not sure I'm in a big hurry to do that. Okay, but back to what I like about film adaptations of stage musicals. This is what I really came here to talk about. Last time I talked quite a bit about Little Shop of Horrors, and what I said about that, it was that I think that one works really well because the sets, the staging are really true to the spirit of the show, and the changes that were made really fit the film perfectly. I think one of the key things that makes a good film adaptation of a stage musical is the performances and the casting. So in the films that I discussed in my other video, I did touch on this, and I think it makes a huge difference to the adaptation if the casting is done right. So let's talk about The Pirates of Penzance. So The Pirates of Penzance is an operetta written by Gilbert and Sullivan, and it premiered way back in 1879 in New York and in 1880 in London. It's easily the best Gilbert and Sullivan, in my opinion. It's witty, fast-paced, and it's laugh-out-loud funny. It's also a blast to sing along to. As I mentioned in my previous video, I've actually been in it once a long time ago when my kids were really small, and then again a few years ago with two of my kids who were also in it with me in local community theater productions of it. Because it's in the public domain, you don't have to pay royalties, so it's a good one for small community theaters to perform. So the film version was made in 1983, and it stars Kevin Kline, who is perfectly cast as the Pirate King, and Linda Ronstadt as Mabel, and Rex Smith as Frederick. And the always perfect Angela Lansbury plays Ruth. And the rest of the cast is excellent as well. I'll talk a little bit about that. There's a Tony Award-winning British star named George Rose who plays Major General Stanley. If you haven't seen The Pirates of Penzance, you may have heard some of the songs and not be aware that that's what they're from. The Major General song in particular has been used by other sources, and one of the most well-known of those is Yakko Warner in season 1 episode 3 of the Animaniacs singing "I am the very model of a cartoon individual."
Can you do it one more time?
Certainly.
And can you do it really fast?
What's this? In fact, when I know what is a member, mammal on a reveling, when I can tell a sight of mouse arrived from a javelin, when sacrifice is sorted and the prize I'm aware at, and when I know precisely what it meant, the commissariat. Oh, when I have longer prayers to be made him on a gallery, when I know more of Texas than an office in an honorary, and sure when I have a smattering of elemental strategy, or say better Major General Stella, ride a horse!
So if you know who Kevin Kline is, but you didn't realize he could sing, he really can. In fact, he won a Tony for Best Actor in a Musical for Pirates back in 1981. So the filmmakers were really smart to cast him. As I said in my other video, I feel like one mistake they make a lot when casting film adaptations of Broadway shows is that they don't use the Broadway performers in the shows or in the films. Just because a celebrity can sing doesn't necessarily make them the best choice for a musical adaptation. But Kevin Kline is absolutely perfect. He steals every scene he's in. He's charming, hunky, funny, and he's absolutely perfect as the Pirate King. I've seen this movie probably more than any other movie I own, like more times. I've watched it so many times. He has some really funny sight gags that if you blink, you'll miss him. And he's just absolutely magnetic. Like you can't take your eyes off of him.
I shall live and die a pirate king!
Oh, better far to live and die under the brave black flag I fly than play a sanctimonious part with a pirate head and a pirate heart. Away to the cheating world go you, where pirates all are well to do. But I'll be true to the song I sing and live and die a pirate king.
So Rex Smith was a bit of a pop star in the 70s and 80s, but he did have experience on the stage. He played Danny Zuko on Broadway in Grease in 1978 and other roles over the years on stage. And he's really well cast as Frederick. He's all moon-eyed and naive, and his voice is perfect for Frederick's high tenor ballad style songs. Linda Ronstadt played Mabel Stanley from 1981 to 1982 on stage, and she was nominated for a Tony, though she didn't win. And while her primary career was as a singer, that's where most of us know her from, she is really good as Mabel. Gilbert and Sullivan didn't write complex, deep, dramatic characters, and so she was definitely good enough. Her voice, too, is astounding. Some of the high notes she hits are way out of range for many of us amateur sopranos. She's very, very good. And of course, the fabulous Angela Lansbury is great as Ruth. She plays Frederick's former nurse turned pirate. She's got really good chemistry with both Klein and Smith, and she's clearly having a great time playing Ruth. There is an actor named Tony Azito. He was a fairly accomplished actor and dancer, and he stars as the police captain, or I'm not sure what they would be called in England, the constable, whatever he is, he's in charge. And he is just hilarious. He dances through the two big police numbers, when the foeman bears his steel and when a felon's not engaged in his employment. So I'll show you just a really short clip of Tony and the other policemen.
When constabulary duties to be done, a policeman's lot is not a happy one.
So the music of the Pirates of Penzance is wonderful. Many of the songs are really fast-paced, and some of them have like overlapping parts, and there are some really funny lyrics. You have to pay close attention to catch all the funny quips and the wordplay, and some of it you might miss even if you're paying attention. Because I've been in it, I own the libretto, the sheet music, and of course I know most of the show. I still have most of it memorized, so I don't miss any of the jokes. But if you do, you can probably get that, the lyrics at least online. So even if you've never seen or heard the soundtrack of the show, like I said, you probably know a song or two from it, like the Major General song and maybe some others. I'm going to show you another little clip. This is one of my favorite songs in the show, with Cat-Like Tread, as the pirates are sneaking up on Major General Stanley's house, and they're singing about how quiet they will be, but they're singing in full forte voices. And Kevin Kline does this incredible choreography, a lot of it on his knees. I don't know how he sacrificed his knees for that role. He must have been pretty young still when they filmed it. So here's that clip.
With cat-like tread upon our prey we steal, in silence dread, our cautious way we feel. No sound at all, we never speak a word, a fly's footfall would be distinctly heard.
So the story is a little bit convoluted. Frederick turns 21 and he goes to leave the pirates, to whom he was indentured by mistake when his nurse misunderstood his father's instructions to indenture him to a ship's pilot. She heard the word pirate, and so that's where they went off and became pirates. So he turns 21, and then he tells them he's leaving. And after he leaves, he discovers what beautiful girls really look like, and he rejects Ruth's affections, and so she returns to the pirates without him. Frederick meets the Stanley sisters, of whom there are quite a few, and he sings this funny song about he'd be willing to love even one of the girls if they were homely. And then Mabel appears, and of course he falls in love with her. The pirates come on shore and threaten the group, but Major General Stanley appears. He sings his song, and then he declares himself an orphan, and the pirates let him go. So the pirates of Penzance have developed this reputation for being really soft on orphans because they're all orphans themselves. And they know what it means to be an orphan. And so one of the great comedic exchanges in the movie happens when the Major General and the Pirate King have to clarify whether they're saying the word orphan, person who has lost his parents, or often, frequently, because of course with the British accent they both sound like often. So there's a callback to this joke later in the movie as well. It's pretty good. So the pirates return to the ship, and they realize that because Frederick was born on the 29th of February, and because his contract says that he was indentured to serve until his 21st birthday, not his 21st year, that he is still one of them. So the Pirate King and Ruth come to tell Frederick that he's actually one of them. And he, like Frederick, calls himself the slave of duty. So they sing a pair of funny, fast-paced songs, and then because he considers himself the slave of duty, Frederick feels compelled to tell them that Major General Stanley isn't really an orphan. Although we know that he actually is, but Stanley, considers that the entombed family on the estate that he purchased to be his ancestors by purchase. I think he calls himself their descendant by purchase.
If I had been so lucky as to have a steady mother who could talk to me as we are talking now to one another, who could give me good advice which she discovered I was earning, which is just the very favor which I knew I am conferring, my existence would have made a rather interesting idyll, and I might have lived and died a very decent individual. This particularly rapid and intelligible patter isn't generally heard, and if it is, it doesn't matter. If it is, it doesn't matter.
If it is, it doesn't matter. If it is, it doesn't matter. If it is, it doesn't matter.
This particularly rapid and intelligible patter isn't generally heard, and if it is, it doesn't matter. This particularly rapid and intelligible patter isn't generally heard, and if it is, it doesn't matter.
So Frederick tells Mabel that he has to leave, but he'll return in 1940, and she promises to be true. So 1940 was a long time away. She calls in the police to capture the pirates and to free Frederick. And the police are really funny. They're afraid of conflict, and they hide as the pirates come back on shore to exact revenge on Stanley for fooling them with his claim to be an orphan. So eventually the police get up the courage to stand up to the pirates, and Rue steps forward to plead for mercy for them. And they sing that because with all their faults, they love their queen, which is Queen Victoria. And the pirates all pledge to be upstanding men, and they are forgiven. And then, of course, they pair off with the Stanley sisters. It's a very silly story, and it doesn't have to make a lot of sense because it's just farcical fun. So the sets used in the movie are clearly a soundstage. Even the water, like, you can tell that it's just fake water on a soundstage. But because this is originally a stage production, I personally think this is preferable to trying to make it realistic. This is something I talked about in my first video. I actually prefer sets for some musicals that look like stages. Some of them, such as West Side Story, the original, do really well with more realistic sets, but others, like maybe shows that are a little more lighthearted and silly, do perfectly well with stages that look staged. Pirates is not meant to be taken seriously, and so I think the staging of the movie really helps with that. So this film, like the original show, is this rollicking, swashbuckling, fun movie without any of the reality of piracy. These pirates are tender-hearted lads. As Frederick points out in the beginning of the story, they're not especially successful pirates because their reputation has preceded them, and they're forced to release every ship they capture because all of the crews claim to all be orphans. And like, as I said, Kevin Kline is absolutely magnetic. You can't take your eyes off of him. And I think Rex Smith and Angela Lansbury hold their own as well. It's perfectly cast. The singing is superb. The orchestra is clearly top-notch, and I just think it lives up to the legacy of the original work. I believe you can watch the film on YouTube, but there's probably better quality versions out there, like on Amazon Prime maybe, or somewhere else. I have it on DVD, of course, because this is, like I said, one of my most favorite musicals, maybe my most favorite. And the soundtrack is on Spotify, the soundtrack of the film. You can probably find other versions. I think there is footage online of Kevin Kline on Broadway performing it, as well as Tim Curry, who played the Pirate King for a while on stage. So those are kind of fun to look at if you're a fan of the show. So that's my follow-up video. Those are my thoughts on The Pirates of Penzance and why it's such a great movie musical adaptation. I was going to talk about other musicals as well, but I think this suffices. Honestly, this kind of covers all the bases. Pirates is just a gem of a show, and like I said, if you're going to adapt a musical onto film, I really think the best thing that they can do is cast Broadway stars, Broadway performers who know what they're doing, who really not just can sing, but really can sing the material that they're being given professionally. And so that's what I think. So tell me what you think. If you have musicals that you love that I haven't talked about and you're interested in hearing what I think, go ahead and put it in the comments. If you like this video, click like and consider subscribing to my channel. Like I said, I'm just getting started with YouTube, so I appreciate all of your support, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.